Frederic. I belong to Saccage. Thank you for accepting our invitation. If you are here, you're probably wondering why there are people opposed to the Olympic Games. Why in France, as is the case with every edition, there are more and more people who are neither convinced nor impressed by the considerable official propaganda machine that repeats in all the media, on television, on the radio, on the newspaper, on the theater, on the cinema, in advertising campaign, that the Olympic Games are good, the Olympic Games are healthy, fun, and helpful for morale. We do not believe in that. On the contrary, we think that the Olympics are detestable, both because of the pseudo-values they convey and because, as always, they commit the same destructive act. As always, as in Russia, in China, Great Britain, Brazil, Japan, and Korea, to name but a few of the most recent edition, the Olympics are the occasion for budget overrun that are paid by additional taxes for the people and by an impoverishment of public services. The Olympics are the occasion for ecological destruction, social destruction, more repression, and considerable setback in terms of public freedom. That is what we want to talk to you about. For the organizer of the game, everything is good as it can possibly be. You will see, I hope, that the Olympics are now only hosted in countries that do not ask their population for their opinion, as it is the case in China, in Russia, United States, Italy, and France. First topic we want to raise, the subsystemic budget overruns. In France, as elsewhere, and as always, the budget overruns are enormous. I remember personally the Paris bid 7 years ago. The commitment of public money was there 3 billion euro. Now it's heading to about 6 billion, and an authorization has already been given to reach 9 billion. But we know that it will be more. It will be more because from the outset, the budget has been never sincere nor credible. Everything has been done. Under budgeting, for example, the cost of refurbishing the Grandstade has been underestimated. There are also hidden costs. For example, the 7 billion euro explosion in the budget of Grand Paris, the huge program of new transportation infrastructure, is officially due to, we don't know, no explanation. And we are asked to believe that it is not due to the need to complete the transport lines in time for the Olympics. The cost of the security is not really known. The state has committed itself to whatever it costs, but is giving fanciful figures, less than 300 million euro, whereas London 2012 is close to a billion. Moreover, money is pouring in for the spectacle, for the manager's salaries, and for the spectacular infrastructure. Meanwhile, austerity is the order of the day in France. The country is under a procedure initiated by the European Union for excessive deficit. The reform of pension, rejected by more than 70% of the people, and which gave rise to the powerful social movement, aims to save 2 billion euro a year. The unemployed are seeing their entertainment drastically reduced to save money on their backs. And the resigning government had just announced an unprecedented 50 billion euro austerity plan. And we are going to waste at least 9 billion euros. Let me raise another aspect, the ecological consequences of the Olympic Games. The COJO, the Olympic organization in France, claims that the 24 Olympics are the greener in history. Is it really so? On the Département of Seine-Saint-Denis only, the inhabitants' health or access to green spaces are being affected by the 2024 Olympics. In Carrefour Pleyel, a neighborhood in Saint-Denis, the construction of the motorway interchange for the Olympics has been increasing air and noise pollution. This pollution, and especially affecting an elementary school comprising 600 children, which are left stuck between the motorway interchange and the motorway itself. In Aubervilliers, the construction of the Centre Aquatique Olympique led to the destruction of many allotment gardens before being stopped by a collective struggle and a legal decision. In La Courneuve, an important part of the Parc départemental Valbon has been used to build Media Village. This village was supported to be removable, but ended up being here as to stay. This is even more frustrating when we know that most journalists won't stay in a village which is seen to be too far off from many competition sites. The loss of their different green spaces and huge losses for a territory which is already deeply lacking in those. What could the COJO mean when he's saying there are greener Olympics in history? Maybe it is referring to the fact that the actual village des Athlètes will turn into a brand new eco-neighborhood. If so, this is really telling what ecology means for the COJO. Ecology is a mere tool to get rid of the working classes, turn a blind eye to the lack of social services, and appeal to upper middle classes, who will be the only target population for the eco-neighborhood. The green aspect of the 24 Olympics is thus only a device to quicker gentrify the Department of Seine-Saint-Denis. Last point I will speak about is the social consequences. The COJO has vastly communicated on the social exemplarity when organizing the 24 Olympics. The organizing structure of the Olympics are different labor unions have been signed a social charter, which notably claims that good working conditions and high quality employment are the core of the organization of 24 Olympics. Yet, if we only focus on the Olympic construction site, we can count hundreds of wounded construction workers. In June 23, Amara Diomassi died while working on the construction of the water retention basin, which is supposed to enable competition in the Seine River. If we take into account the building of the Grand Paris Express, the huge extension of the Paris metro system, deeply intertwined with the hosting of the Olympics, the picture gets even darker. At least 6 more people were killed on construction site. The time pressure inherent to the hosting of the Olympics, everything needs to be ready for 2024, can be one of the explanations for such tragic consequences. The brick of the social exemplarity doesn't end here. The 24 Olympics heavily rely to some 45,000 volunteers whose working condition is really close of employees. In the Charte du Bénévole, which can be translated by Volunteer Charta, a document regulating the activity of volunteers in the 2024 Olympics, we can only wonder at the way the volunteers are bound by fixed and often extremely extended working hours, their specific and detailed tasks, and the supervision from the private company, Omega. Labor inspector, researcher, and union claim that this actually discourages employment. Further, we fear that this will lead to a tragic precedent when it comes to the use of free work. These are only 2 examples of many dramatic practices that the organizing structure of the 2024 Olympics are having when it came to labor and employment. Budget overrun, social and ecological devastation. These few points do not hide a massive regression of public rights. And now I will let the floor to Noémie to present this point. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Noémie Levin and I'm part of another organization called La Quadrature du Net, which is an organization defending digital rights. And in particular, we are fighting against surveillance and censorship. If we took part in this battle against the Olympic Games with Saccage 2024, it's because this big sports event is also a big security and surveillance movement. The main surveillance measure we had to fight is the legalization of what we call algorithmic video surveillance. Algorithmic video surveillance is a technology based on artificial intelligence that analyzes CCTV footage. It's a software used by the police in order to target, to identify, to classify whatever is on the image, meaning it can be objects, situation, behaviors, individuals, bodies, part of bodies, etc. So the police can use this algorithm to find whatever they want to find. For us, it's mass surveillance, and it can allow arbitrary definition of social standards and also paves the way to massive discrimination. The French government used the Olympic Games to justify the legalization of this technology. Algorithmic video surveillance was used in France against the law by many cities that bought the softwares from the companies. But instead of stopping this movement, the French government decided to legalize it, using the exceptional aspect of the Olympic Games to justify some so-called exceptional means of surveillance. So those algorithms, concretely what they can do, the algorithms that were legalized for the Olympics, they can detect some what they call suspicious behavior or not normal behavior, but actually some very classic situations such as being on the ground, a group gathering, or someone walking just the other way that on the crowd. But it can do very much more, and we know that the French government is already thinking about some other use to legalize, such as recognition of emotion or filtering people as if they are women or men, how they are dressed, etc. And even at the end, facial recognition. So it's dangerous, it's permanent control, and it aims to transform the city in a place where all the behaviors are monitored and repressed by the police. It's the first time in the European Union that this technology is legalized. As we saw in previous editions of the Olympic Games, this event is a pretext for legal innovations in security matters. What was striking here were the multiple lies we have to face to justify this dangerous technology. First, so the technology was legalized last year for the Olympic law, so law related to the Olympic Games, to authorize an experiment of this technology. But actually, the technology was already used for a few months, and it can be used until March 2025, and the government wants to use it after the Olympics. There is a huge lack of information and transparency regarding algorithmic video surveillance. It's now legal, but nobody knows what it is. Even the member of parliament that voted last year, they don't know how it works. No one knows when and where this experiment takes place. And it's a minimum in a democracy. It's to debate, it's to have information. For example, I don't know if some of you took the subway to come here, but the experiment for the Olympic Games starting this morning in 46 stations of subway, including Saint-Denis Port de Paris. So if you took the subway, you were part of this experiment. But I guess you didn't see any posters or you didn't hear any information on this. And this lack of transparency is not a surprise. It's well organized, and we think without any information, the acceptedness of this technology cannot be assumed. So this is the main thing we thought, but there are way more other technology and security measures used for the Olympic Games, which are actually the result of every law that passed for the 10 past years. For example, the drones, there are also a lot of CCTV that were put here in Seine-Saint-Denis, but also in Marseille. And we saw also the use of police database and intelligence information for those Olympic Games, because every person that wanted to work on the Olympic Games had to have a background check on those databases. It was more than 1 million investigation. And what just came up last week is that we have a lot of examples of people that could not have the authorization And what they have in common is their political activities. They are or they have been activists, so there must be some police database, and so they were denied the right to work on these Olympic Games. Actually, we never saw that before at this scale. Use of police database to discriminate people regarding their political activities, as we can see in other states which are more authoritarian regime that France claims to be.
Hello, I am Noah from Saccage. I will talk about the securitarian aspect of the Olympic, but also the gentrification and social cost. The police has been using those Olympics to expand their technology and how they can use it. And it has never been a secret. The white paper of the police of 2018 already said that those Olympics were supposed to be a show of French police technology to sell that afterward. So like it's also a commercial event for the French police. We have seen many of rights getting taken away by the Olympic. Now to go to the other side of Paris, you need a QR code to be checked by the police. And to get that code, you needed to have the police check all the files on you. So that means that now to have the right to go outside of your home, to go where you want in Paris, it is not by default, but it's something that the police has to grant to you personally. It is something that gets denied on a whim, and you don't even necessarily know why you were denied. They don't even tell you why you cannot go outside of your home or you can't go meet your friend on the other side of Paris. The police is even more present in Paris. Right now we have more than 45,000 cops and 10,000 military personnel that will be present in the streets during the opening ceremony, including military and police from other countries. We don't even know all the countries that will be present for those Olympics. But this has all been used to also do very unpopular measures that could never have been done before. It helped gentrification too. There was thousands of people that got evicted from their home with the hike of rent prices in prevision of the Olympics. Students have not been able to keep their housing from one year to the next because some landlord wanted to rent both for the Olympic Rugby Cup and then the Olympic. So they said, no, I'm not giving you a lease for this year because I need my apartment available for you to rent. There have been more than 3,000 students that were evicted for more than the summer, sometimes starting in May or June. They were told to leave their housing just to house more cops. Sometimes they have not been given any way to relocate. They were just told you need to leave and we will give you as compensation €100 and two tickets for the Olympic. But who can afford to go to the Olympic if you don't have a home near Paris? There has been many squat eviction places that existed for a long while in buildings that were unoccupied for years, that were housing people that have no other solution, that got evicted. They also prevented anybody to settle in places that were just unused because they didn't want anything to open when the Olympics were near. There also have been many, there have been a big panic of like all of the camps that were of announced people in Paris were evicted and very violently. What they created was a SAS system where they just took people off the streets to put them in a bus and send them all over France, but as far away from Paris as possible. It's often in cities that don't have the infrastructure to help those people. This is all to create a city that isn't a city where people live, but a city that is just an attraction for tourists that must submit to very specific standards that the tourists want of Paris. So nobody in the street, only luxury boutiques. It's all to make Paris more expensive and not for the Parisian, but for the tourist and for the richest person. Those are issues that have been plaguing all of the Olympic edition because it's in the DNA of the Olympic. And sadly, France is not free of the Olympic after. Indeed, we are ready for 2030.
Hi everyone, I'm also a member of Saccage 2024. Basically, we wanted to conclude this France conference with a word about Olympic I'm going to spend in the Alps, but unfortunately our friend who are fighting in the Alps of no joke cannot be here. So they sent us the letter that I'm going to read to you. This letter is important because they sent it to the IOC in Lausanne and they ask IOC to withdraw the Olympic bid of 2030. So they say, request for withdrawal or candidacy. On July 2024, on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic, the International Olympic Committee is expected to officially announce the awarding of the 2030 Winters Olympic to France. In the meantime, the result of the second round of the legislative election, caused by the surprise dissolution of the National Assembly by the President of the Republic, have placed France in a situation of governance that is still unprecedented, where the RN has further accentuated its influence and where voters have clearly indicated a desire to break away. No absolute majority has been reached in the National Assembly, and the choice of the Prime Minister and the composition of the next coalition government are likely to take weeks or even months, with the Prime Minister and government currently in place having no other prerogative than to manage the country's current affairs. It is in this climate of a major fracture in our society, the weakening of our institution and our national governance, and the imperative need for budgetary rigor that the Paris Olympic Games begins in a few daytimes. Moreover, it appears at the end of the election that have just been held that the new Popular Front obtained the largest number of votes on the basis of its program calling for a moratorium on all the projects for the construction of road infrastructure or water reservoir. In various aspects of the Alpine Arc, the newly elected members of parliament have publicly spoken out on the basis of this program against the continuation of the candidacy for the hosting of the 2030 Winters Olympic in the Alps. As a reminder, the French Alps bid to host the 2030 Winter Games was selected by the IOC for various reasons. Number one, the low number of bids which led the IOC to put the French Alps that wanted to bid for 2034 or 2038 initially to accelerate the process to position themselves for 2030, reducing by this way the delay by unprecedented proportion. Number two, the lack of consultation of the French people, unlike the Swiss, who, for reason of systematic popular opposition, have never been able to complete the candidacy file despite the seriousness of this. And number three, the assurance of the payment according to the IOC requirements of the financial guarantee of the French state, unlike the Swedes, who for this reason have never been able to complete the candidacy file despite the seriousness of this file. It is undeniable that the assurance of the payment of the guarantee by the French state in the context of an event highly exposed to hazard, particularly climatic hazard, was an essential decisive element. Moreover, presented in record time, this candidacy was from the outset strongly contested for its lack of transparency, consultation, and its ecological anachronism. It has also been supported by a government that is still living its last hours. It is clear that since Monday, July 8th, the card has been completely rescheduled and this candidacy appears even more weakening and anachronistic. The two regions that are candidated have undergone profound change, with the election of Mr. Wauquiez as a deputy, who will refer to give up his mandate as the president of the Aura region, and Mr. Muselier, president of the PACA region, who will have to deal with the wave of deputies from the RN, whose program is based on a sharp reduction in public deficit and on prior financial audit of state spending. The various programs of the newly elected deputy are those in total contradiction with the financial commitment made both for the Paris Olympic Games and for the 23rd candidacy. As a reminder, the provision for the future deficit of the COJO of the Paris Olympic Games amount to more than 3 billion euros. Political risk. There is no Olympic game without Olympic law, those that allow the budget of the Olympic Games to be voted, which authorize major exemption in terms of urban planning, security, advertising, anti-doping, control, etc. However, the political configuration of the Parliament and its polarization will not allow the IOC to guarantee the adoption of the specific law, without which the Olympic Games as a guarantee given by the French state cannot be implemented. Ecological risk. France is the country most affected in the world by the climate change, average of more than 20%. The chronic deterioration of snow conditions and the selected sites such as Le Grand Bornand for the biathlon events will accelerate the artificialization of the Olympic narrative, which is already heavily impacted by Sochi and Beijing. Democratic risk at last. The National Commission for Public Debate should have been referred to beforehand in application of Article 7 of the Environmental Charter. The CNEOSF deliberately chose to submit its application without prior consultation, which has a strong impact on the legal security of the French candidacy, which in fact has no proven and legitimate popular support. The withdrawal of the French candidacy must be officially and urgently requested and debated with the IOC. This is why, in conclusion, we demand the withdrawal of the French bid to host the 2030 Olympics Games and the IOC declaration that this bid is null.